This is Eric Douglaster,
Hi.
and I need you to turn this around.
Where's my camera? That one? What'd you do? My camera? I hope so.
What'd you do? Get a whole bunch of stuff on your shirt?
Why? Here, brush it up. No, don't use that or it'll get scared. Do you have an erection while you're looking at me right now? Just want to know, do you have an erection? These guys in the
Over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow.
You know, at the age of, I don't know, something about 7 or 9, I came to Hollywood with my mother, and I did my first film called Best Foot Forward. And Hollywood, for an actor as a kid growing up, I don't know if I would do it again. But Eric Douglas grew up here in Hollywood. Father, Kirk Douglas, come on, the youngest son of the Douglases. How many brothers do you have?
I have 3 brothers.
Right. You have?
Well, there's me, and I'm the youngest, right?
Right.
And there's Peter, and Michael, and Joel.
And Joe. Oh, so your father had 4 sons.
That's right.
I grew up with my
At
brothers
least
too, the same 4.
that's all that we know about.
Right.
And we all
Eric.
look alike.
All look alike.
So we know that the milkman didn't do it.
Eric, growing up here as a child with your father and your mother in Hollywood, what age did you start working with your dad in a film?
Well, actually, it's an interesting question. I am very fortunate in that I am the only of my father's sons who's actually been on camera with him. I made 3 movies that he's been in.
Right.
One in which I played him as a young man.
Which was that?
That was called Remembrance of Love. It was a TV movie we shot in Israel, and I played a young Jewish partisan in a Lodz ghetto. And because all the other actors were Israeli,
Right.
okay, I had to get an Israeli accent, so we'd all sound like we were the same. But the very first movie I made was a movie that my father had financed from the Jicarilla Apache Indians.
Ah, Gunfighter.
That's right.
I remember that. Matter of fact, it's one of my favorites of your dad's.
Yeah.
Gunfighter. Who was the girl in that?
That was, oh my God,
God,
there were incredible actors.
Actresses.
You ready? Karen Black,
That's right.
Jane Alexander. Do you remember Ralph Fallone? Ralph
Of
Fallone.
course,
You
the
know who
wonderful
played,
actor.
You know who played against him?
Who?
Johnny Cash. I remember going over to
That's
the...
right. Johnny Cash was in that film. That's
Yeah.
right. I remember.
We went over to the
Was it-
Cashes and had grits every morning.
Did you really?
That was the best thing about that picture.
And you were how old then?
I was about 9. I
9.
guess.
And you remember the grits used to go to Johnny
Oh,
Cash's?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, his wife June Carter, she'd make him.
Growing up here with all the stars, you know, going to their homes, you must have some great, great stories.
Well, I gotta tell you, my favorite story,
Yes.
which I've never told on camera before, and please, if you're listening, Jamie, don't kill me.
Jamie Curtis?
Jamie Curtis
Okay.
was the first kiss that I ever had. Because you see, in those days, you always played with the sons or daughters of your father's agents or your father's friends. In this case, it was Tony Curtis.
Right.
You know, yonder is the castle of my father. And Jamie and I were playing in a treehouse that my parents had built on our home
Right.
in Beverly Hills. and I tried to give her a kiss, and she pushed me away, and there was a trap door, like all tree houses have.
Right, of course.
And the trap door was open, and boom, I fell right down to the bottom, and I ended up having a hernia operation because of it. So I don't know if Jamie remembers that, but that was my first time that I ever tried to kiss a girl.
We're here at the Beverly Hills High School today. You had to come here.
Alma
You went to
mater.
school here?
This is it.
Really?
Yeah.
And you went to high school here. You graduated here?
Yeah,
or-
you know, finally my parents realized, they sent me to private school for
Right.
a long time. Because basically, oh, there's my dog.
Yes, I know. Go ahead.
My dog follows me everywhere. as
I
you know.
understand.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to meet him later.
And I'm glad you're an animal lover, because I am too.
I'm not only an animal lover, I'm an animal activist.
Are you really?
I adopt all my dogs,
Uh-huh.
and I also make sure that they're neutered when there's time, when it's time, because you see, there's such an overpopulation of animals now,
Right.
and also so many of these cosmetic companies use them as experiments, and it's really a tragedy. So
That upsets you. I see it right through your eyes.
I do
It
want
does?
I do want to say that if anybody loves animals, please go out and adopt one, because there's a lot of them out there.
Okay,
But
anyway.
to finish your point,
Right.
when I was a kid, I went to private school because my parents grew up very poor, and they wanted me to have what they never did. But finally, when we got to the age of, high school,
Right.
they realized that the schools in the neighborhood, such as Beverly High,
Right.
were just as good. And the reason I liked it is because, I could go over to Johnny's house or Bobby's house or Timmy's house, whereas when I was in grammar school, we ended up at the school called John Thomas Dye. Have you ever heard of that school?
Of course.
Way,
Thomas.
way-
Yeah, a lot of stars kids go
Oh,
there.
are you kidding?
I think
Ronnie Reagan was already
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan's son.
I think
polluting.
Christian Brando, didn't he go there, or he got kicked out of there?
I
Christian-
know it.
Okay,
I
go
do.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Not my age. And I'm not that old either. But no, Ronnie Reagan already started pulling out anti-campaign slogan against, are you ready for this? What was Jerry Brown's father's name? Pat Brown?
Pat Brown,
Pat
that's
Brown.
it, that's it.
He's saying how Pat Brown posed nude in magazines with naked women. I mean, that kid was already campaigning for his father when we were like 6 and 7 years old.
Anyway, getting back, college, Claremont.
I went to a college very near here, which was...
Claremont's a good school.
Yeah. It's a 5-college structure,
Yeah.
very much like the Oxford plan.
Right.
And believe it or not, Skippy, I don't know if a lot of people know this, it's another little secret. I graduated with 2 degrees. I got 2 diplomas. One was in filmmaking and the art of filmmaking.
Really?
And the other was in film acting and performing.
At the time you were going to Claremont, at the time you were here at Beverly Hills High, acting was a bug with Eric Douglas, or was it just what?
Well, my father, and then eventually my brother Michael, because there's a big age difference, never encouraged me to go into the business. Because first of all, it's not about like who you know or what people think. Because you can be Pablo Picasso's son, but if you can't paint a painting that people are going to get into or buy,
Exactly.
forget it. But they discouraged, because they showed what we had to endure, which is the old Hollywood that you're talking about, which is now no longer around. It was frustrating, it was depressing, it was agitating. You had to wear certain clothes, you had to appear at certain functions.
You didn't like that, Eric?
Not only that, the gossip scene. I mean, my God, now at any given time, you can
Right.
turn on any channel,
Right.
and you've got 12, 14 different gossip shows.
Right.
When I grew up, there was one person. Do you remember who it
Yeah,
was?
of course. Of
Rona
course.
Barrett.
Rona Barrett, Etta Hopper. Well,
No,
Rona
that was
Barrett.
before me.
Rona Barrett was yours.
Rona
Yeah,
Barrett
absolutely. That was the
the
only one. Yeah.
person.
And Eric, then London. You went to RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatics. You
Well,
studied.
here's what happened. I didn't really know I wanted to be an actor when I did that movie when I was 9 years old.
Right.
But when I started to find out that I loved public speaking, this is another secret.
Right.
I was in high school, and you know how when the teacher would ask somebody to read aloud, I was always the one like the guy in Mr. Cotter, ooh, 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 and I was raising my hand up, okay? And I loved getting up in front of the class, and I loved standing up there and holding this book and making jokes, you know, I mean, out of the thing. And so I realized through public speaking that acting was what I wanted to do. So then I said, okay, to really decide, let's get the hell out of Hollywood. And I wanted to get a classical training. And I went to England.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Went to London.
To get classical training.
Right.
And I got to be honest with you, learning Shakespeare has been the greatest boost to my current, one of my current careers, which is stand-up comedy.
Right.
Because if you can get up in front of an audience and do iambic pentameter and get them to, you know, love you and enjoy you, you can do anything. And that's the biggest thing about stand-up comedy, is overcoming the fear.
Returned back from London. Now what happened? You landed in New York or California back here?
Well, I wanted to do theater. So I started,
you know, your father, like you said, you come from your father was very poor. But that stuck in his mind, and he said, all my sons are on their own. They are going to work. The Douglases, regardless of all the money your dad made, he made you work.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when I went to college, I took a 6-course overload, and I took a part-time job as a projectionist.
Right.
And I worked in the food co-op making hamburgers, and it made my father furious because he wanted to have, he said, I want you to have all the benefits I never did, you know?
Yes.
And it infuriated him. Because I said, no, you taught me to be independent.
It's independent.
He was a strong,
that's what you did,
determined guy. He, you know, when I mentioned a gunfight being funded by the Indians, my father broke the blacklist by hiring Gore Vidal to do Spartacus. My father's been an independent producer before the term independent producer ever existed. And that has rubbed off on us, because in some ways, I almost think it was reverse psychology. His telling us not to get involved in the business, because all of us are.
You all are, and now you're a comedian too. You got into comedy, not just motion pictures, television, commercials, voiceovers. Eric Douglas is busy. And right now you're going to be going out to do another movie. Right now.
I'm doing
this right as we speak. And the movie is called, right now, it's called what? Do you remember? Oh, I think it's called The Other One.
The Other One, that's right. And I play a wonderful landlord, handicapped in a wheelchair.
Right.
And I end up, well, I don't want to give you the whole story.
No, that's okay.
But I end up dealing with a man who brings a kind of saves a guy's life.
Right.
Who turns out to exercise himself of all the devils and all the evils that are inside all of us. But let me tell you why I went into comedy for 2 seconds. I went into comedy because I was tired of the roles that were being offered to me. And stand-up is a great career for that. Number one, you're the writer. You write your own material.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? I tried buying jokes, and the truth is...
Got to be yourself.
Exactly.
Truth go on stage.
If you don't find it funny, nobody else.
Absolutely.
Number two, I'm the performer, so I got to do the acting.
Right.
Number three, I'm the producer, because I book myself. I call the clubs up. I deal with the club owners and get the jobs.
Right.
And number four, I am also the director, because I'm the only one who knows how to make the joke work.
Exactly. Is it tough growing up, being Eric Douglas, son of Kirk Douglas? Was it tough for you?
Well, the toughest part was, it was a different age, a different era.
Oh, how about now? We're in 1998. Is it tough for Eric Douglas? Because, you know...
At the time of growing up, we were not even allowed to play with some of our parents' friends, some of my friends, if they weren't talking to my parents.
Yes.
Or vice versa. Now, what the problem is I'm suddenly getting my own name and my own persona, and it's kind of weird.
Right.
Because, you know, the truth is, I have to wipe my own rear end. I have to put my pants on one leg at a time.
Right.
You know, and when people recognize me, or even when I get fan mail, I gotta be honest, I get a kick out of it. I don't mean like ego kick.
Right, I
I
understand.
mean, like, it's really incredible, and sometimes really touching. The kind of people that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a whole real world out there.
You realize that now. You always realized it.
My father has always given us that training. As a matter of fact,
Are you very close
my
with?
parents even made us learn, at least made me learn,
Yeah.
a third language. I speak fluent French. Because in my father's day, they had to speak French in order to make movies in France.
Right.
Because they didn't get dubbing at that time. So my parents always spoke in French when they didn't want me to understand what they were talking about at the dinner table. And I was furious, because I always knew when they were switching the conversation to French, it was about me.
They didn't
Like
want
I
you
got
to
a bad grade in school, or I didn't clean my room. So one night I came back after studying very hard in school.
Right.
And I suddenly turned to them and I said, "C'est pas vrai, j'ai un B en mathématiques, pas un D." It means, it's
You
not
turned-
true. I got a B in math, not a D.
Your favorite film of your dad's? Do you have a favorite film of your father's?
Yes.
What is it?
The most famous and wonderful and incredible and sensational, and sadly to say he didn't get the Oscar, but definitely was riveting, was the life of Vincent van Gogh.
He should have, absolutely.
Lust for Life.
Lust for Life, one of my
That
favorites too.
was not just the epitome of a frustrated, starving, struggling, maniacal artist, but it was every artist.
Yes.
It wasn't just Van Gogh. It was everybody.
Was that his favorite too?
I think his favorite today, if you were to ask him, would be Lonely Are the Brave,
Oh, really?
which is this cowboy who was from the old days, just like, you know, we're talking about old and
Right,
new Hollywood,
right.
you know, who couldn't adapt and couldn't understand or get used to how modern technology was
Right.
taking over.
Eric, biggest change in your life. You know, they say Eric Douglas today on the news, on the radio, they giggle because of the plane situations, because of being arrested. They don't know Eric Douglas like some of the people I know in town, who really Eric Douglas is. Eric Douglas is not what they are portraying, like the plane, being arrested.
You've known me for many,
I've known
many
you,
years.
and I really get upset when I see and hear things about you.
What can you do?
Well, what can we do? Eric Douglas, how do you feel about this? I mean, you've been in courthouses lately lots of times.
It's torturous. It's torturous the whole way of the legal system. The only thing that hurts me the most is I haven't reached a level of my career where I can be able to deflect it. And nowadays, you know, you can get arrested for anything.
Right.
You take the term assault, which is something that
Of
I've been
course.
arrested for.
Many times.
Do you know?
Because you're standing up for your right. And when you stand up for your right sometimes,
But-
they call the police and arrest you
Yeah,
for no
but
reason.
you know that
Absolutely.
people think assault means punching someone or getting a black eye. The definition of the term assault in California is any form of unlawful touching
Just
or
touch.
the intent thereof. It need not touch the person. It need only touch the person's clothing. It need not actually hurt, cut, injure, blacken, redden, lacerate, or scrape the person. It need only hurt the person's feelings.
What would you like to tell my audience or any audience about Eric Douglas? How do you feel are they doing to you? I mean, because it upsets me, you know,
Well,
Eric.
I just think that everyone deserves their own chance. And I think that what has taken me a few years is to stop letting it bother me. So for those of you out there who think that they're having an unjustifiable time,
Right.
it's probably more because you're, or one, is obsessing or letting it get to you than you know, just forgetting about it and going on with your life. It's the same thing. I was once arrested for disorderly conduct. Do you know what that means? It means any form of rude or obnoxious behavior.
Right.
My God, I mean, how many people do you know are rude and obnoxious on a daily basis?
You wanted to be a favorite airline pilot. Tell me about that. I just found out. I can't believe it. You're always getting arrested on airplanes. What is this about? You want really? Is that your hidden
The
secret?
funniest thing is that I always loved flying and I loved airplanes, and now I'm petrified of them.
Are you really? Oh, because of this incident all the
I
time.
mean, I once went on an airplane, and a stewardess tried to get me off, and the captain said, "Well, what did he do wrong?" And she starts to break into tears. "Well, I've never had him on my flight before, but 5 of my friends have, and they've all had to start therapy."
You drive everyone crazy, they say, but you don't really.
No, I mean,
You know what's so wonderful about Eric Douglas?
It's
Eric,
a different world now.
you know, Eric, it was so wonderful. I heard a great story about you. I heard a story when you were in Rome or Germany. You know, they go to bed at night in hotels when you were a kid, evidently.
Oh,
you used to get out of your room, and they used to put shoes out in the
told you that?
Tell me about that story. Tell me what they used to do. I love it.
I used to love, because you know,
Go ahead, tell me.
they in the fancier hotels in the old days
in Europe.
you put their shoes out at night and they would shine them
Out in the hall,
and then they would
yeah.
return them
Out in the hall.
Well, I would run around the hotel because I thought I mean, let's
You were a
face
kid,
it,
you were having
I'm
fun.
precocious. I still am. Okay. I went around and I switched all the different shoes around.
right.
So I would mismatch the pairs.
I think it's
and
great.
then I would get up in the morning and watch how these people would get up and look down at the ground.
Hysterical. Delta Force. I didn't know you were in that film.
Yeah, you know, I am proud of the work I've done. That is one thing I want to say.
Yes.
If you want to know the one thing, I want people to know Eric Douglas for his work, not for some crazy antic that somebody, because you know, there's always 3 sides to every
Yes, yes,
story.
yes.
Yours,
Of
mine,
course.
and the right one.
Michael
The
Landon.
Delta Force
is-
is a great picture. It was a commando movie.
Commando with I think it was Shelley Winters is in that too, wasn't she?
No,
Or was
she
it the other
wasn't
one?
in
The
it.
first one. This is third. Delta
This
Force
was
third.
the third one.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
She was in the first one.
Yeah, with Susan.
Michael
Susan,
Landon.
Michael
that
Landon.
was a treat.
The
I got to
Heavens,
work
is that
with-
his series thing
it
you
was
did?
Highway to Heaven.
Right.
I did a 2-part episode with him. And you know who played my father? Donald O'Connor.
Oh.
Now you talk about art imitating life.
Uh-huh.
He played a guy who was an actor comedian. And this line just riveted me from the script, and I was dying to play the part when I read it, and that was like this. I said, I always wanted to have a father, a real father, because it reminded me
Right,
so much of
right.
my own father. And he said, I know. He said, most people have fathers that go to work at 9 and come home at 5. And your father went to work at January and came home in June.
We're talking about your dad a lot. Your mother. Never bring up your mama. Tell me about that lovely
That
lady.
means a lot.
You know, I saw
People
her at
don't
the
realize this, but you know, my mother is the driving force behind the Douglas family. She is, first of all, one of the smartest, shrewdest businesswomen in the world.
Right.
She knows how to collect art. There isn't one of us who doesn't sign a contract before she sees it.
Uh-huh.
It's very important because I got to tell you something.
Of all the
A
sons
lot
of all the boys?
of movie star wives
Uh-huh.
couldn't hack it, as you know.
Right.
Turned into alcoholics because here they are. They had famous husbands. They were all getting the attention, and they didn't find their niche. And my mother said, "The hell with it. I'm going to have my niche. All my boys are artists. I'm going to be the businesswoman."
Your other brothers. Close with all of them.
Well,
Which one?
we have an inside joke in our family because we're all working so hard and running around the world doing
World,
different
different-
things
right.
that we meet at airports, funerals, testimonial dinners.
And saw you last time with your dad and your mother. They were all together at the. That's first
Well,
time
the
for a long.
sad thing is the last time I saw my mom and dad was at, you know, who died recently is Terry McQueen.
Yes,
Steve
yes.
McQueen's daughter.
Steve McQueen's. She did.
Oh, you didn't hear?
I did not hear
Yeah.
this. When was this?
About 2 weeks ago.
And I just interviewed a young man who we talked about Steve McQueen, John Gilmore.
Let me tell you,
Sorry about
it's
that. I did not
drugs.
know.
It's drugs. And I had it.
Steve McQueen's
I
daughter.
had it too.
Tell me
Skippy.
about your drug days.
I had
you
it,
had a.
and
Were you
I am
heavy on
glad-
drugs?
Let me just tell you, I learned when I was doing drugs
Yeah.
that there's 2 kinds of people that take drugs. the kind of people that take it and act out because of it. And then there's the kind which most entertainers and actors fall into. Do you remember when you said, how can you show the real Eric Douglas?
Right.
Those are those few years when I was so tormented. How could I show people who I was that I ended up self-medicating? That's the other kind of drug user.
Right.
And I was that kind of drug user. I would self-medicate because how can you tell? You're supposed to be somebody famous. You're somebody privileged. You come from a background.
Right.
You come from a well-known family. You come from, wealth. What? I'm not entitled to problems?
Right. Is Eric Douglas, I'm looking at you now, you got tears in your eyes right now. I mean, you've had tough times in your life.
I'm
You're
still
getting
here.
straight, well, look, you just got arrested again, you got serving time. Look, you're downtown in LA today. You're living in one of the best hotels in this town of Los Angeles. You know what's happening? You're paying $500, $600 a day for a room, and you are going downtown cleaning up what?
Not that much
Sir,
money.
well,
But
whatever. Go ahead, tell
I'm
me what
out-
you're doing.
I'm out doing community service.
Right now.
Because of one of these type of entrapment situations.
Right.
I was in not a limousine, but a sedan.
Right.
Driven by a driver. And opportunity knocks. And this guy said, well, let's see. This guy's had a bad track record.
Right.
So I could say something. And he made up a story about how I assaulted him, this term assault, because and I didn't realize what he was doing. And unfortunately, the jury believed his word against mine. And they have ordered me to do so many days of community service. And I must say, I'm enjoying giving back. But I'll tell you something. Thank God I spent those years finding myself and getting over the drug issues. Because this is the type of thing where you can build up bitterness and resentment. Because I didn't do anything to this man.
Right.
And this man took advantage of me. And now I'm serving time, so to speak. Now, I don't mind. I'm planting trees. I'm painting. I'm removing graffiti. I'm doing all kinds of, work in the public sector. So for those people who think we have a cushy life, think again.
Where does Eric Douglas would like to see himself? I mean, you live in New York City.
You wanna know why?
Yeah, I would like to.
I moved back to
where-
New York permanently. I was
Right.
bi-coastal for a while because, believe it or not, Skippy, I find it more relaxing.
In New York.
Yeah.
I do too.
Because
Absolutely.
when you hit the street in New York,
You could be on.
everybody's there.
That's right.
The rich, the poor, the
And I love it that way.
disabled,
That's true.
on
Absolutely.
one sidewalk.
Absolutely.
And we don't have these freeway
Yeah,
shootings.
Beverly Hills
We
crap.
don't have
Yeah,
these bombings.
absolutely.
And you want to know why?
Yeah.
I think a big part of LA, everything is so compartmentalized.
Right.
You've got, each area, Westwood, West LA, Brentwood, Beverly Hills, Southeast Central, downtown, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But in New York, you got a tiny little island, and everyone's crammed together.
Uh-huh.
And we got a lot more important stuff going on, like muggings and rapes
Right.
and
And no shooting on
But
on freeways.
Tell me, doesn't
right.
it drive you a little nerve-wracking, the sitting in cars by yourself?
Yeah. Eric, I'm very, very happy to talk to you today. And you're doing this wonderful movie right now because you came over here rushing because you got to rush to do this.
I do. I
film.
got to go right to the set.
And
Skippy.
bringing back memories here at the Beverly Hills High School. Look
Yeah.
at you.
It's
Boy,
really a thrill to be here. But I got to tell you right now.
Yeah.
I was worried to do your show.
Really?
I wasn't sure what was going to come up. But I got to tell you,
Oh, you're
one of the
sweetheart.
best interviews I've done.
No, you're not. You happen to be the best young man around Hollywood because you're honest, you're truthful. No one knows you really like I do. And a lot of people today will know who you really are. Eric Douglas, I love you.
Thank you, my
And
friend.
God bless you. And a lot of luck on this movie of yours. And it's called again, what is it? The Other One. The Other One. And why don't you get your dog? Come on, I want to see
Here,
that
you
dog of
may-
his. Come on, bring him over. Yes, come on.
Just let him
Let's
go.
see. Let him go. He'll come. I want to see
Hi,
your
buddy.
dog.
Come
Look
here.
at that dog.
Come
Bring
here.
him up here.
Oh.
Let's see your dog. What's
There
the
he
name of your
is.
dog?